All right. Welcome, door grow hackers, to the Door Grow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you're interested in growing your business and life, and you are open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a door grow hacker. Door grow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management businesses and the business owners. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. And today's guest is Alex. Alex Jarbo. Am I saying your last name right?
Yep.
I did? Okay.
Yep.
All right. I don't know if it was like a soft H sounding J or
Yeah.
something. So, Alex, welcome to the show. So, Alex, you have a company called Sargon Investments. You do a lot of cool Airbnb stuff. So, I'm really excited to have you on as a guest. I think the Airbnb market is of interest to a lot of my clients and a lot of property managers. It's heating up, there's more interest growing. And so, maybe to get started, tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got into dealing with rental properties.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was originally, I served about 4.5 years in the Marine Corps, and then I had gotten to a point where I sort of just wanted to branch out and sort of do my own thing outside of the military. So got out, and then the day I got out of the military, I'd actually moved down to where I live here in Asheville. Prior to that, I like spent a couple months trying to figure out like where I wanted to move. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And I wanted to get into short-term rentals. That was sort of the niche that I had chosen inside real estate. So when I moved here, got my real estate license, helped some people purchase and sell properties. But saw a lot of people purchasing short-term rentals that would just come to me. And so I decided to purchase my first one, or at least start to purchase my first one. And I originally wanted to use my VA loan and purchase like a duplex or a triplex, live in one and rent the other couple out on Airbnb. But what I realized really quickly was that like it was just very difficult, even back then, back in 2017, to find good cash flowing short-term rentals that weren't completely out of my budget at the time. So after maybe like 3 months of looking at getting outbidded a lot, I decided to build my first short-term rental. And on top of building, I decided to take over the management. So that's where I decided to both start a development company and start a management company. And that one property turned into two turned into four that we're developing, and now we're developing 10, and then working on like a boutique resort. But yeah, that's sort of the short of where I'm at now, is just focusing on putting together these like boutique resort developments, and then we self-manage in-house.
Awesome. So, a lot of property managers listening might think, I would like to be an investor and maybe get some of my own. I know some of my clients dabble a little bit just in their own investments. Even if they manage long-term rentals, they want to get more into their Airbnb. So why don't we approach that topic first, like getting into it? You do some things that are a little bit different than the typical Airbnb investor, and one of which being cabins. So I'm really curious about this idea of why cabins.
I'm so this is prior to COVID. My whole idea was like, people, right now we invest in mountain communities, but every market has
Mm.
their own little area where anytime I talk to someone, they're like, I don't know where to start investing. I was like, just start in your backyard. Your backyard, if you live in a metro area, like a lot of areas, you're going to be renting out, like say condos, or you're going to be renting out um
Mm.
apartments or something, just because you're in a busy metro city. I like to ask them like, where where in your city, or like the market that you live in, where do you people like to take weekend vacations, maybe an hour to two away from you, driving wise? And that's sort of the market that I recommend people sort of go into. Is people people are fine with driving, say, like 15, 20 minutes away from like a metro city up to an hour in some cases. So like a
Mm,
good example of that is like people in New York, like New York City are going to travel maybe 2 hours. They're used to traveling 2 hours north to say like the Catskills to vacation. Same thing with say like in California on the West Coast. People in San Diego are pretty used to going up to Big Bear Lake and taking that drive. Land prices are going to be cheaper, but you can also host some like say not parties, but like bigger. You can host more people on in some of these larger cabins, and you have more control on the design, and that's sort of the thing we really focus on is focusing on developing unique cabins, whether it be A-frames, really nice log cabins. We're dabbling in like tree houses. It's just difficult to find like financing on those right now. But
mm.
the reason we gravitated towards cabins over say something like purchasing a condo in a metro city is we have more control over the design, which just plays into the marketing of it's easier to rent out these unique properties compared to say like something like a normal condo or something where it's a little bit more difficult to differentiate yourself to like the condo next door or something.
So, I mean, so it sounds like some of the key things you look at is proximity, like pick an area that's nearby. It needs to be something kind of, where people take vacations. And then novelty seems to be an aspect to this. Like
Right.
cabins are a novel thing, in the mountain area and making it somehow unique or different or stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like what I always like to say is you want if you say if you're not developing the property and you're coming into it, you want something unique about the property that I like the property to be an experience in itself on top of the city that the people are visiting for the attraction. So like if you're looking at a market that has its attractions, but at the same time it's like you sort of get rid of the seasonality part of it a little bit when the property itself is an experience in itself.
Yeah, good point. The property kind of needs to be its own event or its own
Right.
thing. Yeah. Cool. So let's shift gears and talk about you know, property managers that might want to get into this game of targeting people that like you have a portfolio or a small portfolio of investments that they could maybe get on as clients and what that might look like. And then maybe one of the things I think you're really good at is the technology. And so we could chat maybe a little bit about that.
Yeah, for managers who are looking, say, like we were talking about before this, we were talking about like a lot of long-term managers are sort of starting to dabble in the short-term rental game.
Mm,
It sounds intimidating, but it's not as intimidating as it sounds because I, there's a lot of technology out there right now, plugins and then also CRMs that make the process pretty seamless. Depending on how many properties you have in the portfolio, it's pretty. You really don't need boots on the ground. It might, in terms of like having a property manager in an area. Again, I would focus on one market at a time. But you can get away with a part-time maintenance person. The most important part is probably going to be your cleaning crew, and that's going to be up to you. There's pros and cons to either hiring your own, like managing the cleaning in house, or um, teaming up with a local cleaning crew in the area that can handle the cleaning stuff. Which again, the cleaning is definitely like where I look at my cleaning crew as almost the manager of the properties themselves because
mm.
they're there at least twice a week. Um, or at least once a week, depending on what the booking looks like. So they see what needs to be replaced, what's damaged. If anything is damaged, they send me a picture directly, which I send directly to either Airbnb, VRBO, wherever the property is listed. So the technology piece is going to be huge. And again, it's all dependent on how big you are. If you have 10 cabins, you can probably get away with. There are messaging plugins where it's like I would say 80% of your messaging is automated, and then you can hire virtual assistants to sort of take over the other 20% of the messaging where it's like specific questions that are asked, or say if they're calling or something.
So the cleaning crew is almost your inspection crew. Like they're doing
Absolutely.
somewhat of an inspection as well, not just coming in and cleaning. So they're identifying issues, submitting things to your maintenance team or your system for maintenance. And then you need people that are managing that, And then you've got VAs that can help facilitate some of these things happening, right?
Right.
Now, what are some of the actual technological tools that you utilize that help you to systemize the business and make things simple for yourself?
The first one is, and I'll talk about maybe 4 or 5 tools here. The first one's gonna
Cool.
be it's a tool and a company called Stafi, and I've talked about this tool so much now, and I've recommended it to anyone looking to get into short-term rentals. Stafi is essentially a little disk that plugs in the back of the router, and what that does is it email captures any guest that's using your internet. That one protects you from if the guest is doing anything illegal on your internet, which might happen. But second, it captures everyone's email in the cabin. So it's a it's you're essentially taking digital marketing principles and applying it to brick and mortar business, which is the short term rental stuff, which is a little
Cool.
difficult to do. But if you can master that part, it's like you can essentially capture your customers. So Stafi, imagine like you're walking into a Starbucks, you walk into an airport, and you have to enter in your email address to be able to get access to the Wi-Fi. It's the same idea here, but it's geared towards short-term rentals. So from there, we capture their email. We use MailChimp to push out marketing emails, but we push out maybe seasonal emails, like 3 or 4 emails a year, just saying, hey, like this season's coming up or Valentine's Day is coming up. Would you like to book with us? Originally, or when you're starting off, you can just put your Airbnb link directly in there. But as a manager who wants to build a bigger short-term rental business, you can use this to sort of take people off of Airbnb VRBO, where they book initially with the short-term rental sites, but then you can build a platform on the back end to sort of capture direct bookings where you're not paying both the guest is not paying the processing fees, and then same thing with the host. You're saving money on that end, where you're
Smart.
sort of you have more control over the guests, which is what we realize is very important.
Yeah.
Is
So you're
controlling the
shifting
guest.
from just traffic that's fed to you by Airbnb, and you're taking that traffic so that it doesn't always have to come back through that and creating it's your own traffic. It's traffic you
Absolutely.
own now.
You're
You
building a
have
list.
their
You're
email.
building a list with the short-term rentals.
What and for those emails that you capture, do you have any like even anecdotal data or information on how many rebook at the same property? Is that common?
It is pretty common. I don't have exact numbers on that, but we do see a boost in booking, say like a couple days after we push the email out. Right now, we're still working on building out the back end platform. We're just pushing them directly back through Airbnb right now. But companies like Airbnb and VRBO have metrics that show like, hey, this person has rebooked with you this many times. And then people who are looking to get into more of an advanced system, we use Streamline, or we're going to be using Streamline. Streamline vacation rental software is top of the line, where you can syndicate syndicate to the top short-term rental sites, and then it sort of syndicates all the messaging too that comes from the different sites, so you have one platform, which I'd really recommend doing. Like if someone is coming up to a manager and saying, hey, I want to take over your property, what can you do for me? The first thing I recommend is always, are they just on one platform? If they're just on Airbnb, if they're just on VRBO, you can already um, there's already room for growth there by just putting it on a couple other platforms. You're putting more eyes on your property.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, very cool. So Streamline for syndication is one of the things you mentioned. You mentioned MailChimp for getting emails out periodically to your list or some sort of newsletter. What other tools are you using to kind of simplify the business?
Right now, a digital guidebook is very effective. We like to essentially plan. I started stole this idea from my wife and I had vacation in Tulum Beach on a resort, and
Mhm.
when we arrived, the resort had practically planned our trip for us, where it's like, hey, if you want to do a cave diving trip, this is this. If you want to, this is what your day would look like. If you want to go visit the pyramids, this is what your day is going to look like. If you just want a chill day and just want to go visit restaurants, this is what your day could look like. So we did the same thing there, where we planned maybe 3 to 4 days. Like here, we have We have like over 100 breweries in this city. So we do like a brewery day, we do a hiking day, we do a waterfall chasing day. And it's like all that's in the digital guidebook where you could put links to different things in the digital guidebook and it's just sent out. The link is sent out with the check-in instructions. Same thing with you can get with local restaurants or local providers and be like, hey, can you give me like a 10% discount? And then I'll put it in my digital guidebook where the guest can use like almost like a QR code where you can just generate a QR code. Yeah.
So for the digital guidebook, is this just like a Google document or is this like
Right. We use a company called Hostfully, and Hostfully is specifically a short-term rental digital guidebook.
host fully?
Yeah, Hostfully. Host and then
Okay.
Fully. Yeah.
Okay,
Pretty
cool.
cheap too, man. It's like I think it's like $15-20 a month per property.
Got it. And so what advantage does Hostfully give you over just throwing it in a Google document, for example, and just putting
The
some of the
templates are
links and
super
stuff?
easy to use. You can also track like how many people are actually looking at it.
Mm,
I mean, Google, I would say the templates, and then also Hostfully does have a back end system, just like Streamline. So like Streamline, I believe it's a minimum of 15 properties. If you're just starting off, Hostfully, I believe, is like $25 a month per property, where it's the same type of syndication CRM where it pushes out to the other short term rental sites. So you can sort of sync those two together.
got it. Yeah, I had a software company on one of my previous episodes. They were showcasing tripangle.com. And he was talking about how they like reduce all the fees connected to Airbnb and all this stuff. So pretty cool. It might be worth listeners checking out that and checking out tripangle.com. I think he had mentioned something about Streamline the last time I talked to this gentleman too. So some
Streamline's
connection
sort
to
of the
that.
company standard. It's been around before Airbnb and before VRBO like blew up too. People forget like short-term rentals is not a new idea. It's just the access to be able to like Airbnb has made it so much easier. And VRBO too. Like short-term rentals have been around for a very long time where people had to pick up a phone and book. So like I mean,
Right.
people aren't missing the boat on. Like people think I talked to a couple people a week. There's like, is it too late to invest in short-term rentals? Like, no, it's not. Invest and manage both. It's a continuing to grow, especially with COVID. Like people sort of stepped away from hotels a little bit, and they're more comfortable driving out a little further out. Where it's like, if would you rather pay an extra $50-100 to stay in an actual house compared to a hotel? And same thing with like some of the larger properties that we manage. Um, it's like we have families instead of booking maybe 2 or 3 hotel rooms. They're just going to book one house, and it almost comes out to be the same price per night.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
For large groups, it's hard to beat. You know, if you're doing a family reunion or something like that, it's pretty
right,
difficult.
right.
You're talking a whole bunch of hotel rooms, or you get a 10-bedroom house, right? So,
And one thing, you going back to the tools that just came to mind.
mhm.
This has helped us a lot when it comes to because we are in a very strict short-term rental market in terms of like laws and zoning and everything.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's helped us a lot, and this can help a lot of the managers who are looking to get into the space, is using a company called Noise Aware and stacking that with a company called Party Squasher. And we mainly use Noise Aware over, compared to Party Squasher. You can combine the two, but Noise Aware sort of it looks it hears it doesn't listen to everything that it doesn't listen into conversations, but it monitors the decibel level inside of the property. So if the guests are being way too loud or screaming, they'll get they'll since you get their phone number at booking, they'll get even if it's through Airbnb or VRBO, they get an immediate text message like, "Hey, you're being too loud. Could you please like quiet down?" or something like this. So maybe a little bit more tactful than that, but
Yeah.
that's been a very powerful tool for us. Is and especially approaching the county, it's like the biggest thing neighbors think about is like, oh my god. When they think Airbnb, they automatically think like, oh my god, there's gonna be just parties next door all the time.
Right.
So
You're just gonna
that
party
that
and
that's right,
destroy the neighborhood.
right. Destroying the
So,
neighborhood.
yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So if they get a text message, do they reply to this, and do you see their messages, or like, what the hell, like,
You
this is
can see
crazy.
that, but what we do, there's like a whole list of things. So Stafi, what I mentioned earlier, also allows you to see how many devices are connected to
Yeah.
the Wi-Fi. So
Right. So if there's like 1,000, there's
yeah,
some
so I
wager
mean,
going on.
granted, you might have your laptop, like one guest will have a phone, a laptop, so 2, 3 devices, maybe an iPad too, a tablet.
Yeah.
But if like the property sleeps 6 people and there's 30 people attached to the Wi-Fi, uh, we also have like an outdoor facing camera just at the driveway too. So say if we do get say because we can set it up to where we get the noise notification as well. So from there we just look at our cameras and say, oh, okay, there's 50 cars in the parking lot and this place sleeps 6 people. And then from there we sort of we can either text, hey, like you're not supposed to have, or we can reach out to Airbnb directly. We've never really dealt with that issue, but it's the systems are in place just to make sure that just to keep
As a fail
the
safe.
yeah the fail safe.
So and it's largely probably the screening process at the outset that you have in place that prevents that, right? So you mentioned noise aware, you couple it sometimes with party squasher. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Or
and I personally hasn't haven't used it, but some other guests have recommended to me. I have almost no experience in that, but I've seen it a lot mentioned on different short-term rental podcasts and some of the books that I've read too.
okay,
I
cool.
don't know what it does on the back end, but
Yeah.
like,
Well, I
yeah,
don't either. Okay, cool. So, but it probably prevents parties, which is probably a big concern. Like, so parties happening, the noise aware and the party squasher. All right, cool. Any other tools or systems that you utilize in managing your rentals to make sure things go smoothly?
Going back to the cleaning crew, just a good line of communication is very important. Making sure that you are choosing a cleaning crew or a cleaning company that can grow with you. A lot of the time, if you don't want to be teaching your cleaning crew how to clean short-term rentals, because what I realized
Yeah.
initially, and just with the labor shortage that's happening right now, is a lot of people like my cleaning crew stopped taking on new clients, not new properties, just new clients. Um, it's difficult to sort of try to switch the mindset of like approaching a cleaner that does takes care of properties, say like for just cleaning people's properties. Like our property manager or our cleaning crew specifically deals in short-term rentals, a company that
Mm,
is used to turning a property 2, 3 times a week, if need be. Another thing I'd recommend is it might affect your bottom line a little bit, but it, it might outweigh the amount of time that you put on a specific property. Is because of COVID, we stopped taking on 1-day bookings, which we were taking a lot of
mm,
1-day bookings prior to COVID, and that sort of just came out of my cleaning crew couldn't handle the workload from the 1-day bookings. But what I realized is looking back, we've been doing that for 4 or 5 months now. We've stopped taking 1-day bookings. Is um, a lot of our problems were a lot of our problems, a lot of our questions, a lot of our bandwidth was taken up by 1-day guests. And I sort of understand it's like so a lot of the times they were just coming in at like say 8, 9, 10 p.m. and they have to check in at 10 a.m. the next day. They don't really get to
mm,
enjoy the property too much. So you get those late night texts a lot too from the 1-day guest compared to a guest who's staying 3, 4, 5, sometimes a week with you. Sometimes those are the quietest guests where you don't hear anything from them. Maybe a couple questions here and there, but what I saw is a lot of my issues, a lot of my uh, people requesting refunds or whatever was coming from 1-day guests. So for people who are already in the short term rental space, I'd play around to see if maybe because I mean, the 1-day guests were only, and what I also realized too was like sometimes that 1-day guest will book in the center of the week in the Wednesday, which blocks someone from booking that entire week. So if someone's in the short-term rental space, play around with seeing, maybe just do it with one property and see how the property is affected. You might get a better tenant in there, which is what we saw, a better tenant by booking 2, 3 days minimum compared to a 1-day. And what I also saw with if you're booking on Airbnb or VRBO is the algorithm sort of adjusts based off of that request of only accepting 2 or 3 day bookings. It'll try to
Mm.
play with your schedule to show it to people who are only trying to book 3 days and sort of like for most of our properties are fully booked up with no 1 day gaps in the schedule right now after we've switched over from not taking 1 day bookings.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would imagine that that would be really effective. Plus, if you're able to get 2 and 3 day bookings to fill it up for the most part, you probably, rather than a bunch of 1 days, you're probably between a 1 day and a 3 day, for example, you probably have similar operational costs for the
Right.
same, but
That
the
and then
stay is different.
less wear and tear because your cleaning crew's coming in there. I mean, just constantly
Yeah.
turning the property and everything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's been huge, and that sort of just came that like we discovered that by accident. Also, one of my mentors had told me like we were operating at for the first year we were operating at like 100% occupancy, and he's like, "Your prices aren't high enough. You shouldn't be at 100% occupancy." And that range true for any type of real estate asset. It's like
Mm.
if you're at 100% occupancy or 100% booked,
Yeah. You haven't hit the
whether
limit yet on what you could get
right,
if you're at
so
100%.
multifamily, self storage, whatever. It's like if you're at 100%, you got to raise your prices. So.
Yeah. What's the occupancy rate you go for now instead of aiming for 100%?
If we can, so we raised our rates by 30%. If we can stick to the 85%, which is, I mean, if you look at like companies that look at like what to price your property as, like airdna.co is probably another good a good
Mhm.
tool for the audience. That sort of helps you price out what the short-term rental will rent for, airdna.co. Um, they sort of look at if a property is anything over 75%, that's looked at like you're in a higher percentile compared to anything below that. Um,
Okay.
when we this is getting on the development side, when we develop our properties, we underwrite them as long-term rentals, just in case like if the zoning ever changed in the city, that it's an extra fail safe, it's an exit, like if that's worst case scenarios, if we have to book it out as a long-term rental, it can cover the debt service and the expenses if we needed to.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when COVID hit, the short-term rental game got pretty damaged in the short term, right? Like that was, and there was a lot of people like trying to shift and
Yeah.
shuffle and get their properties into the long-term space.
Yeah.
Um, but
What I
you
saw
know,
too is, I had talked to someone, I realized that there's different we use the term vacation rental and short-term rental, pretty interchangeably, but sometimes
yeah,
people look at that as differently. Vacation
mm,
if you look at it if you look at the definitions of what I'm about to explain right now, vacation rentals is what I'm in right now. Sometimes short-term rentals can be looked at like 30-day plus stays, but not over
yeah,
6 months. And what I saw is another way
kind of
to
extended stay, sort of
yeah, and
short term.
during COVID, a lot of people were renting out to traveling nurses, and they're still doing that. Is
Mm,
they're renting out to traveling nurses. Say you're not in a market where you have all these properties. You might be close to a very large hospital. If you're close to a large hospital, you can go. There are short-term rental sites that are specifically geared towards nurses, and that's a lot of hosts sort of pivoted towards that during when they weren't allowed to do short-term rentals. But the 30-day plus stay is sort of a gray area. Is almost all cities and counties cannot regulate. Um, Short-term rentals for 30 days plus, which is interesting. A lot of people are
yeah.
making good money just on that route. So
Yeah, I've talked to some property managers. One property manager mentioned that they do a lot of that extended stay. It's in the short term sort of space, but they get a lot of people from overseas that are coming over that need a place to stay in the interim, or they're coming for some sort of work thing. They might be, maybe from India coming to work for a tech firm or some of these things, and they need an extended place to stay for a few months while they're doing some sort of training, things like that. And so, yeah, that can be a very profitable business. They're getting a lot more money than the standard rate on a
Yeah.
property. So,
And you had mentioned COVID. It'll be interesting to I've seen different projections on like once international travel really starts to pick up again, like not prices or occupancy might drop, but it's going to be interesting to see. Every market's going to be different. How that plays out because a lot of people did start they picked up Airbnb and VRBO during COVID, where it's like instead of staying in a hotel, they decided to book through Airbnb and VRBO for the first time. So it'll be interesting to see if those people, if the occupancy and the rates sort of stay the same once international travel picks back up.
yeah, that will be interesting. Well, cool. This has been really insightful, and I'm sure those that are kind of dabbling or just getting into the short-term rental game will have picked up some cool ideas and some cool tips. Anything else that you think they might be interested in, or that we could point out to property managers?
Yeah, I talk a lot about this stuff on my YouTube channel too. Alex Builds. It's a little logo of a blue treehouse. If they want to sort of dive deeper into the management side of it and the tool side, they can check that out. And then also my website sargoninvestments.com. Sort of they can, if they can't find the YouTube channel, they can find it through there too.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Alex, I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate
And
having me, man.
thanks for sharing some of your knowledge and insights. And I wish you continued success in your short-term game.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason.
You bet. All right, cool. So check him out on YouTube. He's got a cool little YouTube channel, going over investments, short-term rentals. He talks about some cool ideas, lending, loans, like how to play the game of short-term rentals. So check him out on YouTube. And for those that are interested in growing their property management business, be sure to check us out at doorgrow.com. We're here to support you in your growth. We're especially really good at helping you not just add a bunch of doors without spending a bunch of money on marketing. And we have short-term rental clients, in our program. And long-term rental clients are our most common target audience that we're helping build out their portfolio. But we also are helping on the operational side to be able to streamline the business and to become the entrepreneur that can run and have a team that makes your life easier so that you have more freedom, more fulfillment, more contribution, which means you're making a difference and doing things you really feel good about, and more support. And so if you feel like you're kind of scarce on those things, I call those the 4 reasons, and you're really frustrated and you're really banging your head against the wall with your team, then reach out. We can support you and help you in that. You might be a really good candidate for our Door, Grow, and Scale Mastermind, which is really awesome. So anyway, check us out. And for those that are listening to this on iTunes or on YouTube, be sure to also join our free Facebook community, which you can get to by going to doorgrowclub.com. And until next time, to our mutual growth. Bye, everyone.